This list isn't my all-time favourite movies. It's my top 10 movie experiences that I had watched at the cinema at the time of their release. So, without further ado, number 10, Die Hard. Released in 1988 and starring Bruce Willis in his best role as wisecracking NYPD detective John McClane, who becomes a fly in the ointment of thief/terrorist Hans Gruber, played by the late great Alan Rickman, as Gruber's crack team lock down the building where the estranged wife of McClane is attending a Christmas party. What unfolds over the 130-minute runtime is a character-driven, action-packed, tense, funny, and moving experience that keeps you on the edge of your seat throughout the movie. John McTiernan, the director, handles the action with style, and the writers Jeb Stewart and Stephen E. De Souza deliver a script with enough pauses in the action sequences to allow the characters to develop. The sequels pale in comparison. And for all you naysayers out there,
now I have a machine gun.
Ho, ho, ho.
It is a Christmas movie. Number 9, RoboCop. Released in 1987 and starring Peter Weller as Alex Murphy / RoboCop and Nancy Allen as Ann Lewis, Murphy's / RoboCop's partner. RoboCop is a violent science fiction movie that underpins its plot with buckets of satire
I'd buy that for $1.
and emphasise violence, and it is a hell of a ride. Officer Alex Murphy is brutally murdered by a gang of sadistic criminals and is revived by a mega corporation, Omni Consumer Products or OCP, as a cyborg police officer, RoboCop, and wages a violent campaign on the criminals of a dystopian, crime-ridden Detroit, until disturbed by violent, fragmented images, Lewis calling him Murphy, and a chance encounter with one of the gang members. He discovers Murphy's identity and the individuals responsible for his murder, culminating in a violent slaying of the gang leader, Clarence Bodicker, played by Kirkwood Smith, who had murdered Murphy, and the corrupt OCP executive, Dick Jones, played by Ronnie Cox, and in turn, he takes back his identity. Paul Verhoeven, the director, created a visual style akin to comic book panels, plus the outlandish violence, coupled with a script penned by Edwin Nimier and Michael Minner that is chock full of satire, corporate greed, and explores the question of what is humanity. RoboCop is one of the finest science fiction movies ever made, and no matter how many times it has been built on, turned into a TV show, animated series or rebooted, it will always be so. Number 8, Aliens. Released in 1986 and starring Sigourney Weaver as Lieutenant Ellen Ripley. Now that's how to write a female character. She was tough, cool-headed, nurturing, and still feminine. Aliens is a sequel to the 1979's science fiction horror film Alien, directed by Ridley Scott. I wasn't old enough to have watched Alien on first release, so thanks to the advent of rental video, I did. It was a masterpiece of filmmaking, and if I had seen it on release, it would have been added alongside its stunning sequel. Picking up after the events of Alien, Ripley's ship that had been drifting through space for decades is rescued, and after her debriefing from her skeptical employers, who didn't believe in the claim of alien eggs in a derelict ship on the exomoon LV-426, and the events leading up to the destruction of the Nostromo soon after, Ripley is contacted by Wayland Yutani Representative Carter Burke, played by Paul Reiser, and Colonel Marine Lieutenant Gorman, played by William Hope. And after first refusing to go back and investigate the communication blackout for the terraforming colony that had been set up while she had been in cryosleep, she agrees on one condition: extermination of the aliens. Burke readily agrees, and with the help of the Colonial Marines plus Bishop, an android, played by Lance Henriksen, who Ripley distrusts after the android from the Nostromo had almost murdered her. This time it's war, proclaims the film poster, and James Cameron, visionary director and writer, doesn't hold anything back. He serves up a tension-racked, balls-to-the-wall action movie that delivers some awesome characters, plot twists, fantastic set pieces, and some bitchin' dialogue.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Sequels are mostly inferior. Mainly, they are cash grabs, trading on the success of those original movies, like the rest of the Alien franchise. But not this movie. James Cameron's stereo-pumped Alien sequel is one of the best sequels ever made, and on par with Ridley Scott's masterpiece. Number 7. The Terminator, released in 1984, and Terminator 2, Judgment Day, released in 1991. To avoid annihilation in a future war, an artificial intelligence sends back a cyborg assassin from 2029 to 1984, known as a Terminator or a T-800, to kill the mother of an unborn future leader of the human resistance. And in the sequel, the resistance send back to 1995 a reprogrammed T-800 as a protector against an upgraded Terminator, a T-1000, a shape-shifting prototype composed of liquid metal, played by Robert Patrick. Both movies starred Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, villain in the original and protector in the sequel, and Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, target for termination in the original and all-round badass in the sequel, and ably supported in the original by Michael Biehn as Kyle Reese, a soldier sent back from the future to protect Sarah Connor from the T-800, and in the sequel Edward Furlong as Sarah Connor's son, John, who will be the future leader of the human resistance that will destroy the artificial intelligence. Both movies are directed and mostly written by James Cameron, the only movie maker, I might add, to feature twice on my list of movie experiences. A movie maker that knew how to use technology, solid characters, and stories to create his vision. The Terminator was a low-budget movie, $6.4 million. Incidentally, I watched this movie on my 18th birthday, so thanks Mr. Cameron for making it a bigger day than it already was. It may have been low budget, but you can see every penny on the screen. The script is tight, the dialogue punchy,
You're terminated, fucker!
and the T-800 effects have become iconic. The movie made $78.3 million and made Arnold Schwarzenegger a star, and ignited James Cameron's career. And then, with the advent of superior CGI, the first $100 million budget, James Cameron delivered Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and for the second time he melted my mind. Roughly, it's a kind of a reboot, but he had the good sense to update the main characters. Sarah Connor to an unhinged, pumped up killer, i.e. a human Terminator, and the T-800 into a protector.
Get down.
Who sacrifices himself to save humanity because in his friendship to John Connor he learns to respect human life. A fact that is echoed by Sarah Connor at the end of the movie.
Terminator can learn the value of human life. Maybe we can too.
Budget-wise, these two movies may be millions of dollars apart, but their storytelling, beautifully drawn characters, iconic designs and visuals place them on the same level. James Cameron has made a career of melding these elements. Alongside Aliens, these movies are his best work. Halfway there, number 5, Marvel Cinematic Universe, or MCU, 2008 to 2019. The 11-year run of 22 movies, known as the Infinity Saga, produced the first interconnected storylines that gave the movies an episodic feel, and fed by the post and ending scenes that produced a hook for the next installment.
To challenge them is to court death.
The MUC became a freight train, slow to start, but eventually, after the first Avengers movie, it became a hurtling powerhouse that dominated the box office. Of course, not all the movies were all the same quality. Thor was as dull as dishwater, and Thor Ragnarok was all smoke and mirrors. Both Ant-Man movies were meh, but still fun. Avengers Age of Ultron, Whedon did an okay job bringing Wanda and Vision into the MUC. Captain America, the First Avenger, the rushed third act spoiled it. Doctor Strange, solid but weak villain. And Iron Man 3, okay-ish if a little problematic. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, James Gunn managed to build on Volume 1's characters.
He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
Both Spider-Man movies were fun, if outshone by the third.
The mirror dimension, where I'm in control.
And Avengers Endgame, the conclusion of the Infinity Saga. It felt more like two different movies, but the epic showdown didn't disappoint. And then, the best that the MUC had to offer. Iron Man, the movie that made the MUC possible. Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
It started. Does anyone want to get out?
A brilliant throwback to 1970s political thrillers. Guardians of the Galaxy. I hadn't had so much fun since watching Star Wars in 1977.
What are you doing?
Dance off, bro. Me and you.
The Avengers. Whedon knocked out of the park and gave the MUC its momentum.
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that away, what are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Captain America, Civil War. More brilliance from the Russo brothers. And Avengers Infinity War. The best Avengers movie, and what an ending. The worst of the MUC. The Incredible Hulk. Edward Norton sucks as Bruce Banner, and the CGI is even worse. Iron Man 2, a necessary movie to the MUC, but it's a painful watch. Thor, The Dark World, bland and boring. Black Panther, one of the worst written movies in the MUC. And Captain Marvel. Holy Christ, this movie's so fucking terrible it makes my head ache with its stupidity, and the worst lead in the entire MUC in that era. Throwing great cameos by Stan Lee.
Oh man, I am so fired.
Fantastic casting choices. Kevin Feige's vision before the woke worm ate his brain. The Russo brothers, and Joss Whedon's Avengers movie that cemented the MUC into popular culture. And you have a cinema experience that will never be repeated. The woke wasteland of post-Avengers Endgame has proven that. But that doesn't matter.
We'll always have Paris.
Number 4. Raiders of the Lost Ark. George Lucas delve back into his childhood once again. Not in a galaxy far, far away. He plundered those 30s and 1940s serials, such as Tailspin Tommy and Commander Cody. He had watched on reruns, and with the contributions of Philip Kaufman and Lawrence Kasdan, created a classic. Directed by Steven Spielberg at the height of his directing powers, and starring Harrison Ford, a role to rival Han Solo for popularity as Indiana Jones, an archaeologist and adventurer who has a knack for getting into trouble. I remember having to walk 7 miles to watch this in 1981. I only had money to add to the box office and a packet of mints, but my aching feet were worth it. What a movie! The movie takes place in 1936, 3 years before the start of the Second World War. After returning from an expedition where Jones was almost killed by a rival archaeologist, Rennie Belloc, played by Paul Freeman, for his latest find, a golden idol from a Peruvian temple. Jones attends a meeting with his close friend Marcus Brody, played by Damon Elliott, and is informed by 2 government agents that his old mentor's name, Abba Ravenwood, has been mentioned in Nazi dispatches from Tanis, Egypt, where Nazi German forces are excavating. Jones knows if the Nazis are in Tanis, they are looking for the Ark of the Covenant, and Ravenwood has the medallion that sits on top of the Staff of Ra, which will lead them to the Ark's location.
If you put the staff in a certain place at a certain time of day, the sun shone through here and made a beam that came down on the floor here and gave you the exact location of the Well of the Souls.
The 2 agents task Jones to recover the artifact before the Nazis and return it to the American government. Jones's only lead to Ravenwood's whereabouts sends him to a tavern in Nepal. And into the arms of his ex-girlfriend, Ravenwood's daughter, Marion, played by Karen Allen.
I need one of the pieces your father collected.
After surviving a Nazi attack on the bar, which burns down, and Gestapo agent
I can be reasonable.
That time is past.
Arnold Tot, played by Roland Lacey, burns his hand on the medallion. A nice plot device so that later in the movie both Jones and the Nazis are in the same place. Jones and Marion team up.
I'm your goddamn partner!
And head to Cairo, where they meet Jones's friend Salah, played by John Rhys Davies, who tells them that Belloc is working for the Nazis. Nazi agents try to eliminate Jones, which led to one of the most funny off-the-cuff cinema moments, the sword-wielding thug's demise. Ford was sick with dysentery, so instead of engaging in a fight, he asked Spielberg if he could simply shoot him. Jones fails in stopping Marion from being kidnapped and, believing that she had died in an explosion, decrypts the medallion with the help of Salah, and he has the Staff of Ra cut to the correct size. The Nazis have only half of the medallion to work with, thanks to the burnt hand plot device, and Jones soon realises that the Nazis are digging in the wrong place to find the Well of Souls, the Ark's resting place. Jones infiltrates the dig and uses the correct size of staff in the map room of Tanis, finds the Ark in the Well of Souls, but Belloc interferes, and before burying him alive, he reunites him with Marion. The movie poster declared the return of the great adventure, a movie tagline that captures the spirit of the movie perfectly. The epic fight scenes where Jones is trying to retrieve the Ark after he and Marion escape the Whale of Souls are outstanding, especially between him and a German mechanic who is trying to stop Jones from destroying the transport plane that will take the Ark back to Berlin. The violence is grounded, brutal, and shows the consequence of the violence. Not like today's sanitized products, where consequences of actions are non-existent. The ending is satisfying and spectacular. Aided by a script that is smart enough to avoid contrivances, the weakness of so many action movies today. Top-notch acting, directing, great characters, design, all came together to create a great movie that matured into a classic. Oh, and where's my trilogy, Rian Johnson? This is how subverting expectations is done correctly.
I'll tell you everything.
Yes, I know you will.
Number 3. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. After Star Trek the Motion Picture, the newly resurrected franchise had stalled after its lackluster critical response and Paramount's desire to cash in on the huge success of Star Wars. Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, was removed from the sequel, and Harve Bennett was installed as the executive producer. Personally, I love the motion picture and its TV episode vibe. However, Paramount tasked Bennett to create a more dynamic movie, and as a producer who knew little of the original Star Trek series, he watched all 79 episodes so that he could immerse himself in the Star Trek universe. If anyone at Lucasfilm had an ounce of talent that this man had, Star Wars wouldn't be a joke that it is today. Season 1, Episode 22, entitled Space Seed, caught Bennett's attention. In this episode, the Enterprise crew encounter a sleeper ship holding selectively bred superpeople from Earth's past. Their leader, Khan Noonien Singh, played by Ricardo Montalban, attempts to take control of the Enterprise. After his failure, he and his people, plus a member of Kirk's crew, Lieutenant Marriott McGivers, played by Madeleine Roux, are allowed to settle on City Alpha 5, an uninhabited, fertile world. And Spock notes that it would be interesting to see what Khan makes of his opportunity, thus giving Bennett the foundation for his movie. And build upon it he did with director Nicholas Meyer, who was heavily influenced by the original series, and added the swashbuckling atmosphere of the OC within his script, and by doing so gave the sequel a much needed shot of adrenaline that the original movie lacked. The movie is essentially a revenge story. Khan's paradise was destroyed by a neighbouring planet that destroyed and devastated the service of City Alpha 5.
This is City Alpha 5!
And he blames Kirk for not returning, and for his wife's death, Lieutenant Marriott McGivers from the original episode, by an indigenous eel larvae that killed most of his crew. But most importantly, Khan hates Kirk because he's managed to defeat him 15 years previously. The MacGuffin of the story, the Genesis device, a technology designed to reorganize dead matter into inhabitable worlds, brings the protagonist and villain on a collision course, even though, due to budget constraints, they only encounter each other on video screens.
On screen, sir.
However, this doesn't hamper the movie. In fact, it enhances it. Instead of a physical altercation between Khan and Kirk, they engage in an on-screen battle of wits, which is intense and riveting.
Reliance prefix number is 16309.
I don't understand.
You have to learn.
why things work on a starship. Each ship has its own combination code to prevent an enemy from doing what we're attempting.
This is Admiral Kirk. We tried it once your way, Khan. Are you game for a rematch? Khan. I'm laughing at the superior intellect.
And sets up one of the greatest movie death scenes. The shooting script by Nicholas Meyer, which he completed in 12 days. David Ayer wrote his Suicide Squad screenplay in 6 weeks, and look how that turned out. So it's a remarkable achievement for Meyer to create a screenplay of such quality, and without a huge budget, unlike say Ayer, who threw $178 million at the screen to overcompensate for his crappy script. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is the best movie of the Star Trek franchise. Fittingly, Meyer returned and completed the original crew's adventures with the excellent Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. Number 2. The Lord of the Rings trilogy. Fellowship of the Ring, 2001. The Two Towers, 2002. And The Return of the King, 2003. Directed by Peter Jackson and written by Jackson, Fran Welsh and Philippa Boyds from the novels by J.R.R. Tolkien. So the man who created this.
Boys. I just cleaned it, but...
Directed, produced and helped to write a movie trilogy that rivals the Star Wars OT. These 3 movies are epic. The 2-year pre-production encompassing scripts, which changed throughout principal photography, visual design.
The bones of the architecture of Middle-earth were built by people who are no longer there. But some hint of this has to come through.
The beautiful costumes, various character weapons.
This carries a quiver of arrows on his back. We made over 10,000 arrows for Lord of the Rings. Every race and every species has a different sort of arrow.
Prosthetics, construction of sets and interiors that draw you into the history of Middle-earth. A variety of special effects were employed to create Middle-earth. Force perspective.
We had someone playing Frodo, and we would be staging these, different and
scale doubles,
sets, small sets. So we had the different scales, and
animatronics, miniatures or bigatures as they were known.
Rings, we coined the phrase bigatures because over half of the miniatures that we built at the Weta workshop were the size of sound stages.
All seamlessly blended with the CGI. And those breathtaking CGI battle scenes are jaw-droppingly epic. The greatest movie CGI character created by Weta, and a remarkable performance from Andy Serkis.
They will cheat you, hurt you, lie. Master's my friend. You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. Not listening.
The mammoth 14-month principal photography shoot, plus 3 years of pickup shots. The cast are superb, giving the movies an emotional depth that grounded them within the visual splendour. And Howard Shore's movie score adds the final layer that links every story beat throughout the trilogy. It could have gone wrong, so very wrong, if idiot producers were in charge and disrespected the source material. However, these creatives had the passion for Tolkien's source material and wanted to create the most accurate movie versions possible for the fans and to entertain the general audience. As far as the Hobbit prequels,
Good morning.
What do you mean? Do you mean to wish me a good morning, or do you mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not?
the studio's insistence that it was turned into a trilogy hampered the movies, due to the length of the source material, and they felt forced and stretched. Jackson and his team created something extraordinary that the likes of it will never be seen again, and it almost took top spot on my movie experiences. It was a very close run thing, however, childhood trumps all. This man, George Lucas, had a vision, but above all he had the talent and drive to make that vision. Star Wars was released in 1977 and changed the movie industry forever through refashioning the role of popular culture in Hollywood. And then he followed it up with one of the finest movies ever made, 1980's The Empire Strikes Back. And he finished his trilogy about a hero's journey of a farmer's boy overthrowing an evil galactic empire with the help of his friends and redeeming his father in 1983's The Return of the Jedi. Lucas created a lived-in, practical universe where good, the Jedi, versus evil, the Sith, fight for dominance. Exotic, wild worlds full of creatures and technologies, such as protocol droids who translate languages of sentient beings or machines, and the astromech droids, the versatile utility robots. But above all, he filled it with characters that audiences grew to love. Luke Skywalker, played by Mark Hamill, the farm boy turned Jedi. Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford. Fuck you, Solo movie, for the bullshit reason for that cool name.
Solo?
A cynical smuggler, rogue.
Yeah, Oscar. Yes, I bet you have.
Who slowly turns into a fighter for the rebellion.
You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.
Princess Leia, played by Carrie Fisher, a feisty leader of the rebellion and a member of the Imperial Senate.
Governor Tarkin, I should have expected to find you holding Vader's leash. I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Sir Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor, Jedi Master. And veteran of the Clone Wars. C-3PO, protocol droid, played by Anthony Daniels, and R2-D2, astromech droid, played by Kenny Baker. Chewbacca, a Wookiee, played by Peter Mayhew, Han Solo's friend and co-pilot of the Millennium Falcon. The most iconic spaceship design in movie history. And one of the greatest cinematic villains, Darth Vader.
We're on a diplomatic mission.
If this is a consular ship, where is the ambassador?
Played by David Prowse in costume and voiced by James Earl Jones. Lucas followed the OT with the prequel trilogy. Phantom Menace in 1999, Attack of the Clones in 2002, and Revenge of the Sith in 2005. They are not on the same level as the OT. Dreadful dialogue.
I killed them. I killed them all. They're dead.
Lazy direction by Lucas. And an over-reliance on digital effects. Perhaps if his ex-wife, Marcia Lucas, who was one of the editors on the OT, and instrumental in developing the memorable character moments throughout the OT. The prequels could have rivaled its predecessors. However, George's vision and production design is still evident. Then Lucas sold the IP to Disney, and Fetch Me a Coffee Cafe took over Lucasfilm and set about amber herding all over George's legacy. Single-handedly, this talentless jacked-up waitress has foobad that's fucked up beyond all repair the entire Star Wars universe. The destruction began when Fetch Me My Coffee Cafe hired Mr. Paste and copy hack J.J. Abrams with his story beat to story beat of the Superior Original.
What a piece of junk!
Yes, chef!
That was garbage!
And renamed it The Force Awakens. It did the same trick in 2013's Star Trek Into Darkness. Which was an insult to the Wrath of Khan. So it wasn't a massive surprise when TFW turned out to be a crappy knockoff. However, just ripping off the original wasn't enough. Fetch Me My Coffee Cafe wanted to destroy the OT characters. Perhaps George forgot to thank her for all those years of coffee service. The virtue signal hack Abrams obliged by turning Han into a deadbeat dad who was so incompetent that he had forgotten where he had parked the Millennium Falcon. And for his sins, being a white male, of course, he was killed by a wannabe emo Darth Vader. And Fetch Me My Coffee Cafe interjected identity politics because, hey, Star Wars never had diversity. Abrams' movie was a crappy knockoff with a feminist Robo-Rabbit vibrator of a lead character. But things were about to get a hell of a lot worse. Step up hack number 2. Where's My Trilogy, Rian Johnson? And he cracked out The Last Jedi, the movie that killed the Star Wars IP. Turning cinema's most iconic hero into a sea manatee, milk-drinking surrender monkey. Go away. Who tried to kill his nephew because reasons.
For the briefest moment of pure instinct, I thought I could stop it.
World War II bombers in space. So fucking lame. The most poisonous character ever in Star Wars. Vice Admiral Holdo. A character that makes Fetch Me My Coffee Cafe's stewardship of Lucasfilm seem positively sane. Turning General Hux into a joke.
Message for him.
I believe he's tooling with you, sir.
About his mother.
The imbecilic space chase. Those Canto Bite scenes. Leia using the Force to fly through vacuum space in a what the fuck moment. The most idiotic screen kiss in movie history. Etc, etc. Fetch Me My Coffee Cafe and Where's My Trilogy, Rian Johnson thought they had made a work of genius. No, you pair of simpletons. George Lucas made that movie in 1980 with The Empire Strikes Back. And to try and spin their failure as subverting expectations shows that Where's My Trilogy, Rian Johnson is nothing more than a talentless hack who, like the rest of the fucking woke guild, can only destroy what others have built. After the fang backlash of The Last Jedi, the Han Solo movie that no one wanted flopped like no other Star Wars movie had. However, it left its grubby mark on the IP. Lando Calrissian, one of the coolest Star Wars characters, is retconned into a pansexual droid fucker. Fanfiction wouldn't write such crap. Anyways, I laughed my ass off watching L3 being gunned down. and retconned Lando's reaction when L3 falls apart in his arms during its rescue.
Get you out of here, all right?
And the big emotional scene where his lover dies in his arms. Priceless.
I'm sorry, girl. I'm so sorry.
After the disaster that was Solo, Abrams returned and made a video game, The Rise of Skywalker, that gave us space horses running along the wings of Star Destroyers, and a contrived plot that an average video game wouldn't employ. But above all, Mr. Paste and Copy Hack Abrams transformed the Skywalker saga
For my grandchild to come home.
into the Palpatine saga, thus destroying George Lucas's legacy. The live TV shows are just as meaningless. The book of Boba Fett is an embarrassment of gigantic proportions. The Obi-Wan series, or the assassination of an OT character by the talentless Where's My Coffee Cafe, and The Mandalorian is average at best. But at least for one brief moment, it put a smile back on my face as we got to see Skywalker, the Jedi Master, at work. The Star Wars IP was doomed the second that Fetch Me My Coffee Cafe cared more for identity politics than building on George Lucas's saga. There was one chance to build on the OT characters and bring in new characters that the fans could embrace, just like the OT, and Disney blew it. And did they try to fix this mess? No, the fucking idiots at Lucasfilm doubled down on their failures, blamed the fans, and, aided by the media apologists, pushed that narrative and branded anybody who questioned it a isp or phobe. Alienating the fan base / paying customer isn't a sound financial plan, more like financial suicide. I suppose stupid is as stupid does sums up the Disney Star Wars story. If you like the content, please subscribe. Hit the like button and notification bell for new content.
X-Wing. One X-Wing? Great.